All right, let's knock this thing out. My goodness, it's been a while, hasn't it? What's it been, like 2 weeks? And I'm gonna try to knock out 30 pages. We're starting on page 401, assuming the phone don't ring or somebody don't come to the door or some emergency doesn't happen. Let's knock out the last 30 pages and get through this marathon 6.5 hour FBI undercover recording that tried to set up Schaeffer Cox. Page 401. Mr. Cox, that sounds like a really, really good deal. Barney, yeah, trying to get Coleman out of here. $300,000 whore. Oh, geez, Cox, if we can pay some trucker $500 under the table and also be able to load up any valuables that can help us. $300,000 whore. Yeah, Cox, exist. Barney, yeah, Cox, and work out there. Olson, some tools. You can even bring $300,000 whore. Never ever let me call him Olson. He needs to be referred to as a $300,000 whore for what he is. $300,000 whore. Some tools. You can even bring some tools. You can bring some food. You can, Cox, I bring some tools, some food. $300,000 whore. Some of that food, yeah. Cox, so that I could work. $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, I mean, shoot, we could live in a shed if we have to. Barney, yeah. Cox, you know, $300,000 whore. You can live with that food. You not going to have to be, you know, you're going to have to buy a few little bit here and there, but you're not going to be putting out a whole lot of money for. Cox, I'll load up all my $300,000 whore, the mainstays. Cox, ammo and stuff. $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, and just kind of get a little bit of supervision and $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, and some interesting stuff I could sell, you know. $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, and go down there. $300,000 whore, yeah. Barney, I mean, you don't have to tell me, but do you got any friends or family down there that could, you know, help you out? Cox, not going to go to family. Barney, okay. Cox, I've got friends in every state. Barney, okay, good. Cox, I got Patriot friends in every state. Barney, okay. Cox, well, I got Patriot friends in the South and the Northwest, and then I got fans in all the other states. Barney, yeah, and that's true. You've been down there quite a bit. Cox, I've traveled all over. Barney, inaudible. Cox, too, inaudible. Barney, yeah, inaudible. Cox, and for years, people, I was like, if you ever need a place to hide out, come here. $300,000 whore, wow. Cox, if you ever need a place to hide out, you know, did you ever think if you're having to hide out, inaudible, for a reason, you know? Barney, yeah. Cox, I'm not going to be an audible bill collector, you finding hiding out, inaudible. Barney, yeah. Cox, it's going to be some big horrible thing, some crime that's made up, you know, but then they still act surprised. Barney, yeah. $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, so anyway, let's follow up on that. $300,000 whore, yeah, I will. I'll call him when I get back out to my phone. Cox, if you can do that. $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, that's $300,000 whore. I actually talked to him on Wednesday or Thursday, and he was loading in Houston, heading this way because he runs either to Seattle or Houston, sometimes billing to Great Falls, Montana, but yeah. Cox, or maybe we'll go wherever he's going. $300,000 whore. So yeah, no, Cox, we don't know where we're going. $300,000 whore. I think it'd be awesome if he was going into Cox, and we'll just pack up and stuff. Barney, yeah. Cox, I mean, but we just wanted to have enough money to. Barney, well, once you get down in the States, you're going to have a little bit more. You're going to move a little bit more freely. $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, it'll be I'm an unknown. $300,000 whore, yeah. Barney, yeah. Cox, I hope. $300,000 whore. Keep your hat off. Don't inaudible them down there. They'll arrest you. Cox, no, I won't. $300,000 whore in 2 seconds. Mr. Cox, I won't wear my hat. Won't wear any hats. And then so that's, he's going to smuggle me out. But to do that, $300,000 whore. Yeah. Cox. And then the last thing that I had on this list was I just wanted to ask you guys if you could, if there's any mistakes that you think I have made that I should think about. And $300,000 whore. Yeah, the only thing I can think of, and then was a point Lonnie brought out, is not planning for this a little better, you know, for getting out, having something set up. It's working out good that way, you know. It's working out. Cox, $300,000 whore. But knowing where you were going to run, you know, you could have, in my eyes, Mr. Cox, you mean an audible? $300,000 whore. You could have had a Cox with there'd be no jurisdiction in the, you know, talking about $300,000 whore. No, I'm talking about running, not turning yourself in, not showing up at trial and running. You know, you could have had In hindsight's 2020, I realize that it's a lot easier to take it from here. You could have had a cabin out, Mr. Cox. I didn't plan on running out of the state, you know, $300,000 whore. Yeah, but you could have had something set up somewhere with clothes, food all set up. Cox, inaudible. $300,000 whore ahead of time, you know. You should have had that in Valdez, or Cox, yeah. $300,000 whore, or inaudible in Homer, or you know, someplace like where you could have slipped out, had it all stocked, ready to go to where Sunday morning real early you headed for Homer, or wherever you got on it was gone. And then I'm not saying you were an idiot for not doing it. I'm just saying that in hindsight, looking ahead, if there was something we can from my personal, you can learn that when I'm in the situation, Cox, $300,000 whore, knowing I've got a trial, you know, same kind of situation, Cox, yeah. $300,000 whore. I want to have something set up ahead of time so I'm not at the last minute. Cox, inaudible. $300,000 whore. Trying to get everything set up. Cox, inaudible. $300,000 whore. Tough, it's tough. Cox. Plus the sailboat, if I go out on that, I have so many little islands. $300,000 whore. You can sneak up on that, yeah. Cox, I could never, ever. $300,000 whore. Yeah. Cox, ever be found. $300,000 whore. Yeah. Cox, as soon as it leaves an audible slip, I got to either fly or ferry down there. $300,000 whore. You could have had it on a person could have won, and it's good something to think about now for, like, I have a private slip, or have it in a trailer, sitting on a trailer down Cox, and audible. $300,000 whore. Is it? Cox, yeah. $300,000 whore. Yeah. Cox, it takes $300,000 whore, a semi. Cox, a jet plane. $300,000 whore. Oh, really? Cox, to inaudible. $300,000 whore, that kind of thing. Cox, it would go on a semi. It would not go on a semi. $300,000 whore. So it couldn't be Mr. Cox. It's a big inaudible. $300,000 whore. You know, like down at, what's the little town across from Homer? Silbobia, phonetic. Have you ever been out to Silbobia and out in the bay, out of Silbobia? Not in the wintertime, of course, up there, but they've got all kinds of sailboats and that, you just know, tied up out there. They sit out in the water and they take an audible out to them. You know, could a guy do something like that to where it's not at a dock, at a public dock, where you got to register and pay rent? And Mr. Cox, yeah, inaudible. $300,000 whore. Do all that. You know, we could have it sitting off because I'd like to have something like that, because that is only out of here. It's a boat, your own private boat, getting out of this state. Cox, yeah. $300,000 whore. You know, if a guy had one anchored up, Cox, now that's a good criticism. A good criticism should have planned a little more. $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, I gotta say, planning this with people who can't wing it, but $300,000 whore. Well, on your own, you know, for a guy by himself, you know, a guy can wing it, you know, we can throw a pack on our back and go, but when you got a wife and kids, Cox, well, and also $300,000 whore, it makes it tough. Cox, I was thinking that we'd do is just hop around to safe houses. $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, in town here and keep fighting the battle. $300,000 whore, yeah. Mr. Cox, like we did all summer. $300,000 whore, like you did. Mr. Cox, I was thinking we could do it like we did it all summer. $300,000 whore, yeah. Mr. Cox, just hop around to safe houses, keep moving, lay low. $300,000 whore, and they would not, Mr. Cox, but then it seems to be a little bit bigger than, you know, go to DMV and $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, and audible paperwork. $300,000 whore, yeah. Cox, and audible. $300,000 whore. It makes it tough. Mr. Cox, so you're right. I didn't plan, and then it escalates to get out of the country, and $300,000 whore, yeah. Mr. Cox, and it's $300,000 whore. You know, Mr. Cox, yeah. $300,000 whore. If a guy had a cabin set up someplace out of the Dodge, I mean, I'm talking, you know, we're talking Slana or Toke or Eagle, you know, someplace away, set up with food, a refuge to get away to that anyone could use. I think it's something we should look into doing, that anyone could use. Then at least you can go there and lay low for a few weeks while you plan the actual trip out of the states. I'm saying, Mr. Cox, yeah, $300,000 whore, you know, at least the guy's got a safe place to go. Mr. Cox, yeah, $300,000 whore, yeah. Mr. Barney, yeah, and inaudible, that place should be kept within a small group of $300,000 whore, yeah, oh yeah. Barney, inaudible, take anybody to there. $300,000 whore, yeah, exactly, yeah. Mr. Cox, a little safe cabin. $300,000 whore, a safe cabin. It can It can just be 16 by 20 single-story cabin with a sod roof on a estate. You know, one of those lottery and land deals where they give them and you can get 5 acres, you know, and just a simple Cox. I think a squatter cabin. Barney, yeah. Cox, halfway buried is the best thing. $300,000 whore. That works too, yeah. Just anything that, like, with a couple months supply of food, gas, a little generator, you know, just enough to survive for a while. Barney, yeah. $300,000 whore. And you can, Barney. Well, the thing about a squatter cabin is that they can't let them say, okay, Coleman, $300,000 whore, yeah, Barney, an audible here, an audible, $300,000 whore, and track it down to you, yeah, and you can do that, and you can just go out and build one, Cox and audible, at $300,000 whore, off the, Mr. Cox and audible, $300,000 whore, yeah, and I think that's something we should do, Mr. Cox, yeah, $300,000 whore, we should look into, Mr. Barney and audible, $300,000 whore, for a situation like this, Mr. Barney and audible, $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Barney, find a spot and get in one place, $300,000 whore, something fairly easy access, Mr. Barney, $300,000 whore, you know, not something you got to get in a boat and go down a river 40 miles or get in an airplane to fly in. If the weather's bad, you can't get out there, Mr. Cox, you know, and I think that would be I think that would be good. You know what I think would be good? What would be good? Mr. Barney, what's that? Mr. Cox, you go out an audible road, you know, like Abraham Road and all that stuff, and go way out there, $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Cox, you know, $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Cox, and to where there's almost coming down to where you're almost coming down into the standard creek and audible, $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Barney, okay, Mr. Cox, but you got to line through those neighborhoods forever and ever and ever and go up on the top and then back down, and $300,000 whore and then back down, Mr. Cox, and you get out there and there's all these little houses and audible generators and audible, $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Cox, you know, $300,000 whore, oh yeah, Mr. Cox, get out there and then do like an audible, Mr. Barney, yeah, $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Barney, but I think then if you get back access to road, though would be an audible, Mr. Cox, of course another, Mr. Barney, like we planned, Mr. Cox, another thing would be a place right in town, $300,000 whore. Personally, I wouldn't want to be right in town if I'm running from the, you know, I mean, yeah, it's Mr. Cox and audible, $300,000 whore, best to hide in plain sight, but Mr. Cox, looking for people that don't want to be found are hard, $300,000 whore, hard to find, Mr. Cox to find, $300,000 whore, yeah, but with all the little snitch systems they've got set up anymore, isn't that funny that a paid government agent is talking about snitch systems? Insane. They've got set up anymore. Electricians tell them, look at the cops, and then they just come barging in at the door like the whole reason you're in the snaz, you know. They didn't care. They just busting through the door, you know. They don't need warrants anymore. They can just come right through. Mr. Cox, yeah, $300,000 whore, you know, and you get at least out of the woods. They've got to make a plan, and you've got trooper, and you know you're not going to have to Mr. Cox, you know it's coming, yeah, $300,000 whore. The city cops and $300,000 whore, you know, and you haven't got electricity, Mr. Cox. But I'm saying also an audible, $300,000 whore. Yeah, then we could probably, Mr. Cox, like get him a little job shack trailers. $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Cox, that's parked in the back of some place, $300,000 whore, yeah, Cox. That way you could just go hide under a desk, $300,000 whore, a basement even, you know, someone's basement, that's Cox, a roof, $300,000 whore, a bunker type setup, Cox, a roof is good too, you know, $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Cox, just a little hiding place, you know, $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Barney, Mr. Cox, that we could send people to, $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Cox, because we don't just inaudible everybody out of here, eventually we're going to have to say, wait a minute, this is my country, $300,000 whore, yeah, Mr. Barney, I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes a ghost town inaudible, mind as well be, $300,000 whore, oh yeah, Mr. Cox, inaudible, he saw inaudible, guys running a hydrogen heater, 100,000 BTUs and running on 40 watts, $300,000 whore, wow. Mr. Cox, so 40 watt light bulbs, no electricity, it's inaudible water and into oxygen, nitrogen, burning it in and putting it at 100,000 BTUs a minute, $300,000 whore, whoa, Mr. Cox, 100,000. $300,000 whore, and that's a clean you wouldn't need, Mr. Cox, yeah, 100,000. $300,000 whore, vents or nothing for that. Mr. Cox, well, it makes a tremendous steam, $300,000 whore, is it? Mr. Cox, is what its exhaust is, $300,000 whore. So up here you can have a steam cloud looking like coming off Fort Wainwright probably then. Mr. Cox, coming up an audible, worse an audible 50-ton boiler, $300,000 whore. Oh yeah, Cox, probably wouldn't be that bad. $300,000 whore, wouldn't it? Mr. Cox, but anyway, an audible in the bag. $300,000 whore inaudible, Mr. Cox, because he's talking about bringing up here, hoping that we can get that out to people and get the militia, because everybody who's tried to market this has been killed or disappeared. $300,000 whore. Oh, really? Cox, think what it'll do to the inaudible. They'll never get their money back on it. $300,000 whore. No. Barney, yeah. Cox, oh, sure, this is going to switch over to water inaudible. It's been in a plan to amortize over 30 years. $300,000 whore. Yeah. Cox, guys, anyway, I think that's a good point. I received that. $300,000 whore. Yeah. Cox, that's why I messed up. $300,000 whore. Yeah, and I'm not, take it as constructive criticism. Cox, yeah, no, inaudible. $300,000 whore. I'm not mad like Lonnie, Barney, yeah, I can't really see any. I mean, we all been here because we all make little adjustments every day, and life's all about making adjustments and making mistakes and making adjustments. $300,000 whore. Yeah, Mr. Barney, I know inaudible for how inaudible we were about some of the things that, inaudible and inaudible. In fact, I even have some people in the militia as well. Cox, yeah, Barney, I know he'll believe that stuff, but can tell him, Schaeffer, to calm it down a little bit, because we're getting so much flack from their friends and their $300,000 whore. But did they hear it from Schaeffer personally or read it in the paper? Because what he said in the paper was taken way out of Barney. Yeah, $300,000 whore of context, Barney, and that's what I told them too. It was taken out of context. I said, Cox, yeah. Mr. Barney, if you heard it in context, you'd be, Schaeffer was saying, hey, you guys need to be, think about what you're doing, because I'm holding back a bunch of crazies, and that you guys, are sending up crazies, and it's only right that people, hold these people at bay, and that's all right. All people heard is, yeah, Schaeffer made mention of going into the judges' homes and going, freaking out the cops and stuff like that. And they said, well, Mr. Cox, the reason I said it to the judge inaudible, Barney, I said, that was, even if you heard it in context, that kind of freaks everybody out, especially saying that, I'm sure, $300,000 whore, yeah, Barney inaudible. But I told him, I said, Cox inaudible, $300,000 whore, yeah, Cox. We got to look under the Band-Aid inaudible, Mr. Barney. But I told him, I said, look, I said, I'm not speaking for Schaeffer, but keep in mind, when I repeat my words 3 or 4 times, it's only because this transcript has it repeated 3 or 4 times. I'm not speaking for Schaeffer, but in my mind, these inaudible things were that you get kind of thrown on us a little bit. Even though it was taken out of context, it wasn't inaudible, was because that wasn't for the general public to hear. That was for the cops and the judges to hear. Because as long as they inaudible on somebody else and think that they can go ahead and do whatever they want to, then they're going to go ahead and do whatever they want to if they have a little bit of fear of what the consequences might come upon them. They might think twice. I said, that wasn't threats to any, us, the APM, to sort of go out and start killing everybody. I said that was to get them to start thinking about the lawlessness that they're committing. But that was inaudible people, and that was the thing inaudible. Some of the people in the militia were like, tell him to temper it down a little bit. But honestly, Schaeffer, I can't think of anything. That's the reason that I'm so committed, and it's not standing up walking behind you. It's actually, standing beside you on these things, is because you've had the courage to do it. You've had the intellectual ability to do it and the knowledge and stuff like that. And, granted, how we inaudible, like you said, we kind of already know this stuff, but we don't, and we know things are wrong and stuff like that. And I couldn't put it in words like you have. Mr. $300,000 whore, Mr. Barney, and thoughts like you have. I grew up in the system, and I grew up thinking that I was a free man. $300,000 whore. I need to get going. Cox, okay, $300,000 whore. I don't know what time it is, probably about 4 or something. Cox, 3:30, $300,000 whore. 3:30, yeah. Cox, yeah, $300,000 whore. I need to get going. My wife's going to. Cox inaudible. Barney, skin you? $300,000 whore. Oh, she's going to skin me, but what? Where should I come back out here, or just keep in touch with you because I'm out early? If you need my help, let me go because I can help you. Cox inaudible. Olson, $300,000 whore. Move stuff, or Cox, move now. Need to figure out what the deal is with $300,000 whore. The trucker, Cox, the truck, $300,000 whore. I'll call him. Cox, and if I'm praying that's a go. $300,000 whore. Yeah, I talked to him on Thursday. He was leaving Houston, and it takes him 4 or 5 days depending on weather and the road, so that would be, say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. He would be rolling into town tomorrow. Now or tomorrow or Monday or Tuesday. I'll call him, find out where he's at in Canada. He loses coverage. He loses coverage at Whitehorse and up in Watson Lake and the Whitehorse inaudible. Watson lake at Whitehorse and Audible, and that's only about a 3-hour drive. So in Whitehorse to here, he wouldn't have coverage. So if he doesn't have coverage, that's going to tell me that he's Barney and Audible, $300,000 whore out in a good area. Yeah, he's coming. Mr. Cox, well, here's what we'll do. $300,000 whore. When Cox, see if you can arrange an Audible. $300,000 whore. Yeah, okay, I'm not going to say nothing on the phone. I'm just going to talk to him when he gets here. Although I'll tell him on the phone. I think I'll have a load for him going south. That way he won't schedule anything. He won't take anything else, because he told me on Thursday when he was going to be going back empty. So when I knew he was going back empty, and at the time I wasn't thinking of you, but Cox and Audible go phone, right? $300,000 whore. Yeah, I'll call him on a go phone, but I'll tell him I've got a load for him. I won't say in details. I'll just say I don't worry about a load. I've got a load, and when you get to town, I'll talk to you about it. Cox, okay, $300,000 whore, and he will know. He'll hold it open. Mr. Cox, okay, $300,000 whore, won't take anything else. So Mr. Cox, even if he just holds a little space in Audible, $300,000 whore, he can. Yeah, he's got a great big sleeper with 2 bunks in it. You know, it's one of them great big Peterbilt sleepers, and that's a big walk-in. So he's got lots of room in that, and the only thing that might be an issue is his sleeping. You know, if he slept, and if you had your kid sleep when he slept, and then he'd have a peaceful sleep, you know, get some rest. I mean, just have to work that out, but that's a non-issue. Cox and Audible in the trailer too, $300,000 whore. Yeah, that's Cox and Audible, Mr. $300,000 whore, a non-issue, because with truckers, they don't sleep much, you know, especially going south. They only sleep for, 2 or 3 hours a night. So if you just deck out, duck out for that, Cox, okay, $300,000 whore. So Cox, we'll arrange safe passage and Audible to do as far as work. Marty and I are concerned is get Joe rained out. $300,000 whore. Okay, Cox, if it's an Audible, $300,000 whore. Yeah. And then we get to page 430. It says Certificate of Notary Republic. It says, I, Carlton J. Anderson III, a court reporter, duly qualified in and for the Commonwealth of Virginia, do hereby certify that this transcript was prepared to the best of my knowledge and ability from a recording recorded by someone other than my firm, Anderson. Court reporting, therefore, indiscernible portions appear in the transcript. I further certify that I am neither attorney or counsel for nor related to or employed by any of the parties of the action, and furthermore, that I am not a relative or employee of any attorney or counsel employed by the parties hereto or financially interested in the action. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed my notarial seal this It's blank day of September 2011, signed and certified by Carlton J. Anderson III, Notary Public in and for the Commonwealth of Virginia. My commission expires November the 30th, 2012, Notary Public number 351998. And we started with page 1. We made it all the way to page 430. Praise God. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching for to war.